Sarah Martinez clutched her worn backpack straps as she walked through the hallways of Lincoln High School, her eyes fixed firmly on the scuffed linoleum floor. The familiar sound of whispers and muffled laughter followed her like a shadow, just as it had every day for the past 3 years. Her thick-rimmed glasses, held together with tape, slipped down her nose as she hurried past a group of popular students gathered near the lockers. "Look, it's the scholarship kid," Madison Pierce called out, her voice dripping with mock sweetness. The blonde cheerleader captain stood surrounded by her usual entourage, all wearing the latest designer clothes that Sarah could only dream of affording. "Nice shoes, Sarah. Are those from the thrift store again?" Sarah's cheeks burned with embarrassment as she glanced down at her patched sneakers. They were indeed from Goodwill, purchased with the money she earned from her part-time job at the local diner. Her mother worked double shifts as a nurse just to keep their small apartment, and new shoes were a luxury they couldn't afford. "Just ignore them," she whispered to herself, the same mantra she'd repeated countless times before. But ignoring them was becoming harder each day, especially when their taunts followed her into every classroom, every hallway, and even into her dreams. The lunch bell rang, and Sarah made her way to the cafeteria. She grabbed a tray and loaded it with the free lunch provided by the school's assistance program. Finding an empty table in the corner, she sat alone, pulling out a dog-eared physics textbook to read while she ate. Science was her escape, her passion, and the one thing that made sense in her chaotic world. "Planning to build a rocket to escape to another planet?" Jake Morrison sneered as he walked past with his basketball teammates. The tall, athletic boy had been one of her tormentors since middle school. "Maybe you should. Nobody wants you here anyway." His friends erupted in laughter, and Sarah felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. She blinked them back quickly, refusing to give them the satisfaction of seeing her cry. Instead, she focused on the equations in her textbook, losing herself in the beauty of mathematical precision and scientific logic. After school, Sarah walked to her job at Mickey's Diner, where she worked as a waitress 4 nights a week. The owner, Mrs. Chen, was one of the few adults who treated her with genuine kindness. The elderly woman had taken Sarah under her wing after learning about her family's financial struggles. "How was school today, sweetheart?" Mrs. Chen asked as Sarah tied her apron around her waist. "Same as always," Sarah replied with a forced smile. She didn't want to burden the kind woman with her problems. Mrs. Chen had enough to worry about, running the small diner that barely stayed afloat in their economically depressed neighborhood. As Sarah served customers throughout the evening, she daydreamed about her future plans. She had already been accepted to the state university on a full academic scholarship, with plans to study aerospace engineering. Her guidance counselor, Mr. Thompson, was one of the few people who believed in her potential and had encouraged her to apply for advanced programs. Late that night, after finishing her homework by the light of a desk lamp in her tiny bedroom, Sarah stared out her window at the stars. She made a silent promise to herself that someday, somehow, she would prove to everyone that she was more than just the poor kid they loved to mock. She would show them that dreams could come true, even for someone like her. The next morning brought more of the same treatment. As Sarah walked to her first period class, she overheard Madison and her friends planning their elaborate post-graduation party. "My daddy's renting the country club ballroom," Madison boasted. "It's going to be absolutely perfect. Too bad not everyone can afford to celebrate properly." Her eyes met Sarah's briefly, and the implied insult hung heavy in the air. Sarah quickened her pace, but she couldn't shake the feeling that this wouldn't be the last time she'd have to endure their cruelty. During chemistry class, Sarah excelled as usual, answering every question correctly and completing her lab work with precision. Her teacher, Mr. Rodriguez, often praised her natural aptitude for science, but even his encouragement couldn't completely lift her spirits after another day of social isolation. As graduation approached, Sarah focused all her energy on her studies and her job, saving every penny she could for college expenses. She had received several academic awards and had been accepted into an elite summer program for aspiring engineers, but she kept these achievements to herself. Sharing good news had only led to more ridicule in the past. The day of graduation arrived with mixed emotions for Sarah. While she was excited about starting her new life at university, she couldn't help but feel a pang of sadness about leaving behind the familiar, even if that familiar included daily humiliation. As she sat in the auditorium wearing her cap and gown, she watched her classmates celebrate with their families and friends. Sarah's mother worked a double shift and couldn't attend the ceremony, so she sat alone in the sea of graduates. When her name was called for academic honors, she walked across the stage to polite applause, but there was no cheering section for her like there was for the popular students. After the ceremony, Sarah overheard several of her former tormentors making plans for their 10-year reunion. Madison was already volunteering to organize the event, promising it would be held at the fanciest venue in town. Sarah gathered her belongings and walked home alone, wondering if she would even be invited to such an event, and, if she was, whether she would want to attend. That summer, as Sarah prepared to leave for college, she made another promise to herself. She would work harder than anyone, study longer than anyone, and achieve more than anyone thought possible. The girl they had dismissed and ridiculed would transform herself into someone they could never ignore again. Sarah's transformation began the moment she stepped onto the university campus. The sprawling grounds of State University felt like entering a completely different world, where her past didn't define her future. Here, nobody knew about her humble beginnings or the years of ridicule she had endured. She was simply another eager student ready to pursue her dreams in aerospace engineering. Her dorm mate, Lisa Park, became her first real friend. Lisa came from a wealthy family in California but treated Sarah with genuine warmth and respect from day one. When Lisa discovered Sarah's financial struggles, she didn't offer pity or charity. Instead, she became a supportive friend who shared textbooks, study materials, and occasionally treated Sarah to meals without making it feel like charity. "You're the smartest person I've ever met," Lisa told Sarah one evening as they studied together in the library. "I don't know how you understand these complex equations so easily, but I'm grateful you're willing to help me." Sarah's professors quickly recognized her exceptional talent. Dr. Williams, her advanced aerodynamics professor, was particularly impressed with her innovative approach to problem solving. During her sophomore year, he invited her to join his research team working on experimental aircraft designs for the military. "Miss Martinez," Dr. Williams said after one particularly challenging lecture, "your solution to today's propulsion problem was remarkably creative. Have you considered specializing in military aviation technology?" Sarah's eyes lit up with interest. She had always been fascinated by military aircraft, especially helicopters and their complex engineering. The idea of contributing to advanced aviation technology excited her more than any other career possibility. Working with Dr. Williams' research team opened doors Sarah never imagined possible. She spent countless hours in the lab, developing new theories about rotorcraft aerodynamics and studying the intricate systems that made military helicopters some of the most sophisticated machines on Earth. Her natural intuition for engineering problems impressed even the graduate students on the team. During her junior year, Sarah's research caught the attention of Colonel Rebecca Hayes, a liaison officer from the nearby military base who regularly visited the university to scout promising engineering students. Colonel Hayes was a decorated helicopter pilot who had served multiple tours overseas and now worked in military technology development. "Your work on rotor efficiency is exceptional," Colonel Hayes told Sarah during their first meeting. "Have you ever considered a career in military aviation? We have programs that could fast-track your development while funding your education." Sarah's heart raced with excitement. The possibility of combining her love for engineering with military service appealed to her sense of purpose and adventure. She had always felt like an outsider, but the military offered a chance to belong to something larger than herself while pursuing her passion for aviation technology. After careful consideration and long conversations with her mother, Sarah decided to enroll in the Reserve Officer Training Corps program. The decision wasn't easy, as it meant additional responsibilities on top of her already demanding academic schedule and part-time job. However, the program offered financial benefits that would eliminate her money worries and allow her to focus entirely on her studies. The military training was physically and mentally challenging, but Sarah thrived under the structured environment and clear expectations. Her fellow cadets respected her intelligence and determination, creating the sense of camaraderie she had always craved but never experienced in high school. As Sarah progressed through her studies and military training, she began to develop confidence she had never possessed before. Her professors praised her thesis work on advanced helicopter design, and her commanding officers recognized her natural leadership abilities. The shy, ridiculed girl from Lincoln High School was evolving into a strong, capable woman with clear goals and the skills to achieve them. During her senior year, Sarah received an unprecedented opportunity. The military offered her a position in an elite helicopter pilot training program, followed by specialized training in flying the Army's most advanced aircraft. The Apache helicopter, with its sophisticated weapons systems and cutting-edge technology, represented the pinnacle of military aviation engineering. Sarah's academic advisor was amazed by the opportunity. "In 20 years of teaching, I've never seen a student receive such an offer," Professor Martinez told her. "This is a remarkable achievement, Sarah. You should be incredibly proud." The path ahead would be demanding and dangerous, but Sarah embraced the challenge. She graduated summa cum laude with a degree in aerospace engineering and a commission as a second lieutenant in the United States Army. Her mother cried tears of pride and worry as Sarah received her diploma and military commission in the same ceremony. After graduation, Sarah entered flight school at Fort Rucker, Alabama. The training was grueling, with a high washout rate that eliminated many candidates who couldn't handle the physical and mental demands of helicopter aviation. Sarah not only survived the training but excelled, earning top marks in both flying skills and technical knowledge. Her instructors were impressed by her intuitive understanding of aircraft systems and her calm demeanor under pressure. Captain Rodriguez, her primary flight instructor, noted in her evaluation that she possessed exceptional situational awareness and natural flying ability that couldn't be taught. "Martinez has the potential to become one of our finest helicopter pilots," he wrote. "Her combination of technical expertise and flying instinct is remarkable for such a young officer." The transformation from the bullied high school student to a confident military officer was remarkable to everyone who knew Sarah's background. Mrs. Chen, who still kept in touch through letters, could hardly believe the updates about Sarah's achievements. The kind diner owner had always believed in Sarah's potential, but even she was amazed by how far the young woman had come. As Sarah prepared for the next phase of her training, specializing in the Apache helicopter, she reflected on the journey that had brought her to this point. The pain and humiliation of high school seemed like a distant memory, replaced by purpose, accomplishment, and respect from her peers and superiors. She had discovered not only her professional calling but also her inner strength. The military had given her more than just career opportunities, it had provided her with a new identity built on merit, courage, and service rather than social status or family wealth. 10 years after graduation seemed impossibly far away, but Sarah was already becoming the person she had dreamed of being during those lonely nights in her childhood bedroom, staring at the stars and wondering if her dreams could ever become reality. Captain Sarah Martinez gripped the controls of her Apache helicopter as she prepared for another training mission at Fort Hood, Texas. 5 years had passed since she completed flight school, and she had become one of the most skilled helicopter pilots in her unit. The awkward teenager who once hid behind thick glasses and worn clothes had transformed into a confident military officer with numerous commendations and the respect of her fellow soldiers. Her Apache helicopter, call sign Thunder 7, was a magnificent piece of military technology. The AH-64E Apache Guardian represented the pinnacle of attack helicopter engineering, equipped with advanced sensors, precision weapons systems, and sophisticated electronics that Sarah understood better than almost anyone in her squadron. Her dual expertise in engineering and piloting made her invaluable to her unit and caught the attention of her commanding officers. "Martinez, you're requested for a special assignment briefing," Colonel Thompson announced as Sarah completed her post-flight checks after a successful training exercise. The gruff veteran officer had served multiple combat tours and rarely showed emotion, but Sarah had earned his genuine respect through her exceptional performance and dedication. The briefing room was filled with senior officers Sarah had never seen before, including several with Pentagon insignia. Major General Patricia Davis, a woman who commanded immediate respect and attention, stepped forward to address the small group of selected pilots. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been chosen for Operation Desert Storm Redux, a classified training exercise designed to test our most advanced helicopter tactics and technology, General Davis explained. This exercise will simulate real combat conditions and will be observed by military officials from around the world. Sarah felt her pulse quicken with excitement and nervousness. Being selected for such a prestigious exercise was an incredible honor that could significantly advance her career. The exercise would involve complex night operations, precision strikes, and coordination with ground forces under realistic combat conditions. As the weeks of intensive training progressed, Sarah's reputation grew throughout the military aviation community. Her ability to execute complex maneuvers while maintaining perfect accuracy with the Apache's weapon systems impressed visiting officials and fellow pilots alike. She had developed innovative tactics that maximized the helicopter's capabilities while minimizing risk to crew and aircraft. During one particularly challenging exercise, Sarah's Apache was tasked with providing close air support for a simulated rescue operation in hostile territory. Flying at night using advanced night vision systems, she had to navigate through mountainous terrain while coordinating with ground forces and avoiding simulated enemy fire. "Thunder 7, this is ground control," crackled the radio. "We need immediate support at grid coordinates 234 to 567. Friendly forces are pinned down and need cover for extraction." Sarah responded instantly, maneuvering her Apache through a narrow canyon while her co-pilot and gunner, Warrant Officer James Chen, prepared the aircraft's weapon systems. Their teamwork was flawless, developed through countless hours of training together. "Target acquired," Chen announced through the intercom. "I have visual on simulated enemy positions." Sarah positioned the helicopter for the optimal attack angle, using the terrain to mask their approach while maintaining clear firing lines. The precision required was extraordinary, as the exercise demanded they neutralize threats within meters of friendly forces without causing collateral damage. "Engaging targets now," Sarah announced calmly, despite the intensity of the simulated combat situation. The Apache's cannon and missiles struck their designated targets with perfect accuracy, clearing the way for the ground team's successful extraction. The exercise observers were amazed by the precision and professionalism displayed by Sarah's crew. Lieutenant Colonel Williams, one of the Pentagon representatives, made detailed notes about her performance and innovative tactical approaches. After the exercise concluded, Sarah received news that would change her life trajectory once again. She had been selected for promotion to major and assignment to an elite unit that conducted special operations around the world. The position came with increased responsibility, advanced training opportunities, and the chance to work with the most sophisticated helicopter technology the military possessed. Her mother visited during the promotion ceremony, finally, able to take time off from her nursing job to witness her daughter's achievement. The pride in her mother's eyes made all the years of struggle and sacrifice worthwhile. Sarah had not only escaped their humble circumstances but had also built a career that brought honor to their family name. "I never imagined my little girl would become such an accomplished woman," her mother whispered during the ceremony, tears of joy streaming down her face. "Your father would have been so proud if he could have seen this day." Sarah's father had died when she was only 12 years old, another tragedy that had contributed to their family's financial struggles during her high school years. His memory had motivated her to excel and achieve beyond what anyone thought possible for a girl from their neighborhood. As Major Martinez settled into her new assignment, she began receiving specialized training in the most advanced Apache variants, including classified modifications that enhanced the aircraft's capabilities for special operations. The training was conducted at secret facilities where she worked alongside the military's most elite pilots and technicians. Her engineering background proved invaluable as she learned to operate systems that pushed the boundaries of helicopter technology. She became qualified to fly missions that few pilots could handle, combining her technical expertise with exceptional flying skills and the judgment that came from years of military experience. The transformation was complete in ways Sarah could never have imagined during her high school years. She had evolved from a ridiculed outsider into a respected military officer whose opinions were sought by senior commanders and whose skills were considered among the best in the armed forces. News of her achievements occasionally reached her hometown through military publications and local newspaper articles about successful residents. Mrs. Chen proudly displayed newspaper clippings about Sarah's promotions and commendations in the diner, telling anyone who would listen about the remarkable young woman who had once worked as a waitress while dreaming of a better future. However, Sarah remained focused on her mission and responsibilities rather than dwelling on past slights or seeking validation from those who had once dismissed her. She had discovered that true satisfaction came from excellence, service, and the respect of people whose opinions actually mattered. The 10-year reunion invitation arrived at her mother's house, forwarded through military channels to reach Sarah at her current assignment. As she read the elegant invitation with its promises of reconnecting with classmates and celebrating shared memories, Sarah couldn't help but smile at the irony. The people who had made her high school years miserable were now reaching out, probably expecting to find the same insecure girl they had once tormented. They had no idea that the school reject had become Major Sarah Martinez, one of the military's most accomplished helicopter pilots, with skills and experiences they could never imagine. Major Sarah Martinez stood in front of her bathroom mirror at the officers' quarters, studying her reflection as she prepared for the 10-year reunion. The woman looking back at her bore little resemblance to the frightened teenager who had endured daily humiliation at Lincoln High School. Years of military training had given her excellent physical conditioning, while her experiences as a helicopter pilot had instilled an unshakable confidence that radiated from her every movement. She had requested leave specifically to attend the reunion, though her commanding officers were puzzled by her decision to return to what she had described as an unpleasant high school experience. Colonel Martinez, as she was now addressed, rarely spoke about her past, preferring to focus on her military career and the responsibilities that came with her position. Her current assignment involved testing experimental helicopter modifications at a classified facility in Nevada, work that combined her engineering expertise with her piloting skills in ways that few military officers could match. The projects she worked on represented the cutting edge of military aviation technology, and her input was valued by defense contractors and Pentagon officials alike. The reunion invitation had specified cocktail attire for the Saturday evening event at the Riverside Country Club, the most exclusive venue in their small hometown. Sarah selected a simple but elegant black dress that highlighted her athletic build and professional confidence without being ostentatious. She had learned that true power didn't need to announce itself loudly. As she prepared to leave for the reunion, Sarah received a phone call from her childhood friend Lisa, who had maintained contact throughout their careers despite living on different coasts. Lisa had become a successful software engineer in Silicon Valley and remained one of the few people who knew the complete story of Sarah's transformation. "Are you really going through with this reunion thing?" Lisa asked with concern in her voice. "You know those people don't deserve the satisfaction of seeing how successful you've become. They certainly don't deserve your time or attention." Sarah adjusted her dress uniform's collar as she spoke, having decided to attend the reunion in her military dress blues rather than civilian clothes. The uniform represented not just her personal achievements but also the values and honor she had embraced through military service. "I'm not going for them," Sarah replied calmly. "I'm going for the girl I used to be, to prove to myself that their opinions never mattered. Besides, it might be educational to see how their lives turned out." The drive to her hometown took 3 hours, giving Sarah time to reflect on the journey that had brought her to this moment. The rural highway passed through the same landscape she had known as a child, but everything looked smaller and less significant than her memories suggested. The towns that had once seemed large and important now appeared as brief interruptions in an endless expanse of farmland. She checked into a modest hotel near the reunion venue, preferring to maintain her independence rather than staying with relatives or family friends. The hotel clerk, a young man probably fresh out of high school himself, did a double take when he saw her military rank insignia and pilot wings. "Thank you for your service, Colonel," he said respectfully, using her proper title despite her attempts to downplay her rank during check-in. Sarah spent the afternoon visiting her old neighborhood, driving past the small apartment where she had lived with her mother during high school. The building looked even more rundown than she remembered, with peeling paint and broken windows that spoke of continued economic hardship in the area. She also stopped by Mickey's Diner, hoping to see Mrs. Chen, but discovered that the kind woman had passed away 2 years earlier. The new owner, Mrs. Chen's nephew, recognized Sarah from old photographs his aunt had displayed prominently behind the cash register. Aunt Helen talked about you all the time, he said, showing Sarah a wall covered with newspaper clippings about her military achievements. She always said you were destined for great things. She would be so proud to see you now. The reunion began at 7 o'clock, and Sarah arrived precisely on time, a habit ingrained by years of military punctuality. The country club's elegant ballroom was decorated with their high school colors and filled with people who looked remarkably similar to their teenage selves, though perhaps softer around the edges and showing the early signs of middle-age spread. She registered at the entrance table, where the volunteer coordinator stared in shock at her name tag. The woman, whom Sarah recognized as one of Madison's former followers, seemed unable to process the transformation from the ridiculed scholarship student to the confident military officer standing before her. Sarah Martinez, she stammered, checking the name against her list multiple times. We weren't sure you'd actually come. I mean, we sent the invitation to your mother's address, but we didn't know if you'd still be in the area. I made a special trip, Sarah replied with a slight smile, pinning her name tag to her dress uniform with practiced efficiency. I wouldn't have missed this for the world. As she entered the ballroom, conversations gradually died down as people recognized her. The transformation was so complete that many of her former classmates needed to read her name tag before believing their eyes. The quiet girl who had been invisible except as a target for ridicule had become a striking woman whose presence commanded immediate attention and respect. Jake Morrison, now sporting a receding hairline and the beginning of a beer belly, approached first. His confident swagger from high school had been replaced by the nervous energy of someone whose best days were clearly behind him. He worked as a car salesman at his father's dealership, a job that provided steady income but little of the excitement or prestige he had expected from life. Sarah, wow, you look different, he said awkwardly, clearly struggling to reconcile his memories with the reality standing before him. I heard you joined the military or something. That must be interesting. It has its moments, Sarah replied diplomatically, though her tone carried an undertone that suggested she had experienced things Jake couldn't begin to imagine. And, you? Still in town, I assume? The conversation continued with Jake trying to impress her with stories about his sales achievements and recreational softball league trophies, while Sarah politely listened and responded. It became clear that many of her former tormentors had never left their hometown bubble and had no real understanding of the larger world beyond their limited experiences. Madison Pierce approached next, still blonde and beautiful but with the slightly desperate edge of someone trying too hard to recapture her teenage glory. She had married young to a local business owner and now spent her time organizing charity events and maintaining her position as one of the town's social leaders. Sarah Martinez, Madison said with forced enthusiasm, I simply cannot believe how you've changed. Military life must agree with you. How exciting that must be, traveling around and doing whatever it is that soldiers do. The condescending tone was unmistakable, suggesting that Madison still viewed Sarah's achievements as somehow less significant than her own social status in their small town. Sarah recognized the same dismissive attitude that had made her high school years so difficult, though now it seemed petty and provincial rather than threatening. I fly helicopters, Sarah said simply, watching Madison's expression change as the implications of that statement began to sink in. Apache attack helicopters, specifically. It requires a certain level of training and responsibility. The revelation sent ripples through the nearby conversations as people began to understand that the girl they had dismissed and ridiculed had achieved something genuinely remarkable. The room's dynamics shifted subtly as former classmates reassessed their memories and their assumptions about Sarah's capabilities and potential. The reunion continued with increasingly awkward conversations as Sarah's former classmates struggled to process the dramatic transformation of the girl they had once treated so poorly. Word spread quickly through the ballroom that Sarah Martinez was now a military helicopter pilot, and the revelation created a buzz of whispered conversations and stolen glances. Mr. Thompson, her former guidance counselor, approached with genuine pride and amazement. Now retired, the elderly man had always believed in Sarah's potential, but even he was impressed by how far she had come. Sarah, my dear, I always knew you were destined for great things, but this exceeds even my most optimistic predictions, he said warmly. A helicopter pilot. And not just any helicopters, from what I'm hearing. You've made quite a name for yourself in the military. Their conversation was interrupted by the reunion's master of ceremonies, who announced that it was time for the traditional slideshow featuring photos from their high school years. Sarah watched with detached amusement as images flashed across the screen showing her former tormentors at various school events, football games, and social gatherings. She noticed that very few photos included her, which wasn't surprising given her social isolation during those years. When her senior portrait appeared briefly on the screen, showing a serious-faced girl with thick glasses and an uncertain expression, a murmur went through the crowd as people looked back and forth between the image and the confident woman standing among them. As the evening progressed, Sarah found herself surrounded by classmates who wanted to hear about her military experiences. She shared carefully edited stories about her training and assignments, leaving out the classified details while giving them enough information to understand the scope of her responsibilities and achievements. "So you actually fly those helicopters we see in action movies?" asked Tom Wilson, who had been one of the quieter members of their graduating class. Unlike some of the others, his curiosity seemed genuine rather than condescending. "The Apache is probably the most advanced attack helicopter in the world," Sarah explained patiently. "It requires extensive training to operate all the weapons systems, navigation equipment, and electronic countermeasures. The pilot and co-pilot work as a team to execute complex missions in challenging environments." Jake Morrison, perhaps emboldened by alcohol, interrupted with a skeptical laugh. "Come on, Sarah, you don't really expect us to believe you fly those big military helicopters, do you? I mean, no offense, but you were always more of a book person than an action person." The comment created an uncomfortable silence as other classmates recognized the inappropriate nature of his challenge. Sarah remained calm, having dealt with far more serious provocations during her military career than anything her former classmates could offer. "Would you like to see some proof?" she asked pleasantly, pulling out her smartphone to show official military photographs of her with her Apache helicopter and crew. The images clearly showed her in full flight gear standing beside the imposing aircraft, with her name and rank visible on her uniform. The photographs circulated through the crowd, creating amazement and, in some cases, embarrassment among those who had doubted her achievements. Madison Pierce studied the images with particular intensity, perhaps finally understanding that Sarah's transformation represented something far more significant than anything she had accomplished in their small town. As the formal reunion activities wound down, several classmates approached Sarah individually to offer belated apologies for their treatment of her during high school. Some seemed genuinely remorseful, while others appeared motivated more by social pressure than authentic regret. "Sarah, I want you to know that I feel terrible about how we treated you back then," said Jennifer Walsh, who had been part of Madison's inner circle. "We were just kids, you know? We didn't really understand how much our words could hurt." Sarah accepted the apologies graciously but without the emotional investment they seemed to expect. Her perspective had been shaped by experiences far more significant than high school social dynamics, and she had learned to measure people by their actions and character rather than their past mistakes or current circumstances. As the reunion began to wind down, Sarah excused herself and walked outside to the country club's terrace. The night air was cool and clear, offering a peaceful contrast to the stuffy atmosphere inside the ballroom. She stood looking up at the same stars she had gazed at as a lonely teenager, but now with a sense of accomplishment and purpose that her younger self could never have imagined. Her phone buzzed with a text message from her squadron commander, reminding her about an upcoming mission briefing that would require her return to base the following Monday. The message served as a reminder of her real life and responsibilities, far removed from the petty concerns and provincial attitudes she had encountered at the reunion. Madison Pierce appeared on the terrace, apparently having followed Sarah outside. The former cheerleader captain seemed diminished somehow, less confident and commanding than she had appeared in the ballroom. "I owe you an apology," Madison said quietly, her usual bravado replaced by something approaching humility. "The way we treated you in high school was wrong. I was wrong. I spent so much time worrying about my own popularity that I never stopped to think about how our behavior affected you." Sarah studied Madison's face in the moonlight, seeing genuine regret mixed with perhaps a touch of envy for the life Sarah had built for herself. It was clear that Madison's high school achievements had not translated into the adult success and fulfillment she had expected. "High school was a long time ago," Sarah replied diplomatically. "We were all different people then. What matters now is who we've become and what we choose to do with our lives. Their conversation was interrupted by an unexpected sound that made Sarah's head snap up with immediate attention. The distinctive whoop-whoop-whoop of helicopter rotors approached from the darkness, growing louder and more defined as it drew closer to the country club. Madison looked confused by the sound, but Sarah's trained ear immediately identified the aircraft type and flight pattern. Her eyes widened as she recognized the profile of an Apache helicopter circling the area, its navigation lights blinking in the familiar pattern she knew so well. "What is that?" Madison asked nervously, clearly alarmed by the military aircraft appearing over their civilian gathering. Sarah's phone rang, and she answered immediately upon seeing her commanding officer's number on the display. Colonel Harrison's voice was crisp and professional, even over the helicopter's rotor noise audible through her phone. "Martinez, we have an urgent training exercise that requires your immediate participation. Your skills are needed for a night navigation demonstration that couldn't be postponed. Are you available for immediate deployment?" Sarah's heart raced with excitement and professional pride. Even during her personal leave time, her expertise was considered so valuable that her unit had arranged for her to be recalled for special operations. The fact that they had sent an Apache to collect her demonstrated the level of trust and respect she commanded within the military hierarchy. "Affirmative, sir," she responded without hesitation. "I'm ready for immediate deployment." The Apache circled lower and began its approach to the country club's large parking area, which could serve as an improvised landing zone. The powerful rotors created a windstorm that sent napkins and decorations flying around the terrace, while the helicopter's impressive presence drew every reunion attendee outside to witness the spectacle. Sarah turned to Madison with a slight smile. "I'm afraid I need to cut the reunion short. Duty calls." As she walked toward the landing helicopter, her dress uniform immaculate despite the wind and chaos, Sarah could hear the amazed voices of her former classmates behind her. The girl they had ridiculed and dismissed was boarding a state-of-the-art military attack helicopter, called away by responsibilities and adventures they could never imagine. The Apache's co-pilot, a young officer Sarah recognized from previous missions, helped her aboard while the entire reunion crowd watched in stunned silence. Through the helicopter's windows, she could see Madison and the others standing motionless, finally understanding the magnitude of what the school reject had achieved. As the Apache lifted off into the night sky, Sarah felt a deep sense of closure and satisfaction. She had returned to face her past not for revenge or validation, but to prove to herself that she had truly moved beyond the limitations others had tried to impose on her. The reunion had served its purpose, but her real life lay in the challenges and responsibilities that awaited her in the military world she had chosen to serve. Below them, the country club grew smaller and smaller until it was just another set of lights in the rural landscape. Sarah Martinez, the woman who had once been dismissed as nothing more than a scholarship kid from the wrong side of town, flew off into the darkness aboard one of the most sophisticated aircraft in the world, leaving her past behind and embracing a future filled with unlimited possibilities.